Hi, I'm Sherilyn from Avoca. In this video, I'll give you a brief outline on how to get around the engine and then show you how to import your model you'll have exported from 3ds Max. So once you've opened up the UDK, you get a screen looking similar to what I've got here. You've got a sky, you've got a box, you've got a plane, and you've got an icon which is actually the player. So first of all, you want to know how to move around the screen. Quite simple. If I hold down my right mouse button, keep it held down on the mouse, and move it in a scrolling fashion, it will roll around the screen like so. If I want to move over to this box, I can hold down the right mouse button and hold the W key on the keyboard, and then I go to the box. If I want to come back, hold down the S key on the keyboard, and it will go backwards. If I want to go side to side, the D key, and the A keys. So basically the same keys you would use when you're playing a game. Another way to move around or pan around the screen is with the right mouse button down, click on the left mouse button at the same time and drag around. As you can see, this will pan around the screen. So you can get around really quickly by doing some simple mouse procedure steps as well as keyboard. If you also use the scroll bar on the mouse, as you can see, it's moving away and moving forward. So the scroll bar towards you moves away, the scroll bar away from you moves closer. So here's just a simple way of getting around the engine. Now I'll go over a couple of these icons that are across the top here. Okay, the first one will allow you to open up a new level. So if you click on that, it'll ask you to choose a map. So they've given you some templates you can use. By default, it's the midday lighting, but if you want to choose a different option or a blank map, you certainly can do so. The one next to it is to open. That will allow you to open a map that you previously saved. Of course, you've got the save button. Over here you have got the selection modes. So at the moment you can see this little gizmo here. That is the move gizmo. So if I was to select this box and hit move, you can see the box is moving out of the way. So you can scroll through these several ways. You've got this button, which is the selecting mode. As you can see, it's selecting stuff, but it's not actually got the gizmo to move or rotate or scale. This one here is the move button. This one here is rotate. This one here is scale. Now this scale one scales it uniformly. But if you don't want to scale something uniformly, you select this button here and you can scale it in just one direction, like so. Another way to toggle through these different gizmos is by the space bar. So if I hit the space bar with this one selected, it'll go back to the move, like so. Spacebar again, rotate. Spacebar again, scale. Now the only thing the spacebar does do is when it comes to the scale, it will always pick the scale that is uniform, not non-uniform. So if you decide you want to scale this non-uniformly, make sure you come up to here and you select the non-uniform button. Okay. This here option is local or world, depending on how you want to move or scale or rotate the item, whether it's locally or by the world. A lot of times it'll be local. There are times where you also will use world. This little icon here, this shows you what you have got in your scene. So you can search for actors. Your scene is going to get larger and larger and larger. And say, for example, you're looking for a light. All you can do is in the search bit, type in light. And as you can see, this finds all the lights in the scene. I'll hit close for that. The next button is pretty important. This is the content browser. So if I click on that, it will open up the content browser. Now I will take you through this a little bit more soon, but this is just showing you what this content browser looks like. This is where you import all your data, save all your data, and so forth. So I'll just close that. This here is Kismet, and this is where you will do a lot of your coding that's Kismet based, not C++ or Unreal Script based. So this is where you can attach events, triggers, and so forth. This here is matinee. I won't open this because I don't have a matinee in the scene, but this allows you to, say for example, you've got a door that you want to rotate open. This allows you to create a matinee event to open and close that door on a rotating pivot. This button here allows you to choose translucent selection. So if you've got something in your level which is water, water is translucent. If you find that you can't select it, make sure translucent selection is on. Okay, I'm not going to go through all these icons, but a couple more I'll go through. We have this build geometry for visible levels. What this allows me to do is, say for example, I have this box here, and I have done a box like so. Created a box. If I make changes to that, if I call up the geometry tool, and if I go into brush mode and just grab something here, as you can see, it's gone a little bit strange. What this allows me to do is once I hit that build geometry button, it will update that mesh, like so. Okay. Next important button we want is the build lighting. Now I will take you through build lighting when we finish our shader. This allows you to build everything, put the shadows in the correct location and so forth to make the game look pretty. And the last button I'll show you, actually the second last button I'll show you, is the lighting quality. When you package a game, you must make sure you build it to production quality. If you're just doing some tests, you don't have to do production quality. You've got different options. So if I was to click on it, as you can see, it scrolls through different options. The one with the eye is preview mode. Then you've got medium, high, production. And the last button here allows you to play it, which unfortunately is on my other screen. But once you hit that button, so long as you've got a player start node in there, it will start to allow you to play it so you can walk around your level. Now, if I want to show you what this looks like with me playing it, I can also hit this button here, play in viewport, and as you can see, I'm walking around this level. And the escape key takes you back. A couple of other things that you would have seen me do. This here takes you to wireframe mode. You've got brush wireframe and you've got wireframe. Brush wireframe allows you to modify these brushes, these CSG brushes. Then you've just got standard wireframe, which will show all wireframe of all static meshes and any other meshes. If you ever see your level look a bit strange like this, don't panic. It's probably just in unlit mode. Go to lit mode and it looks a little bit prettier. Now, a couple of other options we've got here. This button here is your camera movement speed. As I click, the blue bar goes higher and lower. What this allows me to do is make it really fast. So as I got that at the top, watch how fast this will actually go. As you can see, quite fast. And I can also incorporate the scroll key on the keyboard to make it faster and slower. So if you want to quickly get to something, you can incorporate that and use that to get around the scene quickly. If you also ever see the scene look like this, and you know that, hang on, I've selected this, why won't the gizmo show up? It might be because you're in game mode, which is G or G on the keyboard. So I hit the G here or G on the keyboard, and it'll toggle between game mode and pi. Okay, so that's just a few simple little things to get you used to the UDK. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to import our model. So because I've made some changes here, I'm not going to save this. I'm going to create a new level. So file, new level, or you can choose the button, and I'll just choose midday lighting. And it'll ask me if I want to save what I've done. I'm not going to, not in this case. And then we're back to the standard level. Okay, so to import your mesh, open up the content browser by clicking the button. And what we're going to do is we're going to import it, and we're also going to save it into a particular package name, into a particular location. So what we'll do is to import, just come to the import button here and click on that. Now you remember we created a package directory within your UDK content folder. So this should automatically go to your content folder so long as you've got the correct UDK open. If you've got several UDKs, make sure you open it up in the right one. So this will take me to the May version straight away, straight into the UDK game and content. And inside here, we've got the folder we created with mesh and textures. And double click on mesh, and we have got our character. So with that selected, click open. Okay, now this is going to ask some information. Okay, what this is asking you to create a package. Now, these packages are very important. This is where you will store all your data within the engine. And when you also cook it to allow yourself to play it on another computer or give it to someone else to play, this is where it pulls all the information from. So package, it's up to you, whatever you want to call it. Now, if you've already got a package that you want to save the data into, you can click on this drop-down arrow and choose any of these here. But as this is the first time we're creating one, we're going to create a new package. So I'm going to call this ICAGAM526A assets. What this is these will be my assets, my meshes, my textures, shaders or materials, everything are going to be put into here. Now I like to create groups just to keep it neat and tidy. Because Selena is a mesh, I'm going to type in the word mesh. Now it's up to you if you want to keep the name or you can rename it. If you decide to rename it, do not use spaces. It does not like it. You can use underscores or just put all the wording together. Now I'm going to leave it as Selena. Now there are a few options in here that we need to make sure are correct. Import type, this will automatically pick up what it is. Now if Selena had any bones, she would have been come in as a skeletal mesh and the UDK would have automatically picked this up. But because the UDK have noticed that she doesn't have any bones, she doesn't have a skeleton, it's a static mesh. Override full name is ticked. This just overrides the name if you want to give it a different name up here. We don't have to worry about mesh LODs and import tangents. We don't have any of these LODs or the tangents. Now, if we come straight down to the bottom, we've got materials. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how you can just bring her in with the materials and textures already there. If you remember, when you created her in 3ds Max, you also put a material on her within Max. Because she had a material in Max, the UDK, because it's also an FBX, will pick up, oh, hang on, a material has been created in the application. Do you want to bring it in as well? I will bring this in for now. At least we've then got a base material to go off, or we can tweak later to turn into the SSS shader. So we do want to import materials and we do want to import textures. Now, if you ever get an error with your textures, you need to go out and check. What might happen is you may not have it as a power of 2. It's extremely important that the engine accepts textures as power of 2, meaning 1024 by 1024. 512 by 512, heck, 64 by 64. You can even have 512 by 1024, 4096 by 8192. These are all power of 2s. If you ever get an error when you import, you might want to go and check that you have got a power of 2, and also make sure that the format of the texture is the correct type that the UDK accepts. 9 times out of 10, Targa is the best way, a TGA file, because Targas will also allow you to have alphas, which I will also explain a little bit later because Selena does need to have an alpha for her to show up properly. So I will select import materials and import textures. Okay, click on OK to all. Now this might take a while depending on how fast your system is, so I'm just going to pause this and let this import. Okay, and as you can see, it has now imported all of the assets. We have got Selena here, so if you want to have a look at her, you just double click on her. And I'll just scale this down to fit into my recording screen. And here she is here. Now I know she's got it back to her because she's not facing down the x-axis, but if you were to hold down your right key and spin around, there she is there. Now, don't worry that her eyes are white. This is where I will explain a little bit later about the alpha map. So as you can see how simple it is just to bring in your character with some textures that you've already created onto a standard material. So I'll just close this. Now the next important thing you want to do is every time you bring something in, I recommend save, save, save. You cannot save enough. And I will harp on this because if something was to happen to the UDK and you lost your work, you will probably just cry. So we don't want that to happen. Learn to save, save, save. And you can always tell if something hasn't been saved. As you can see, when we've got new packages, we gave it a name. See how this little, the other side of the assets, it's got this little tiny asterisk? That means, oh, hang on, we've done something here, let's save it. Now, because I know this is going to be the very, very first time I've saved this, it will actually ask me where to save it to. So all you do is you right-click on the root, and my save just shows up on the recording screen. Hit save. It will ask you, where do you want to save it to? Now, I'm going to save it under my ICAGAM526A, and I'm going to save it straight into here. Hit save. Okay, again, this might take a wee while, and it also depends on how large your textures are, because some of these are 2K, some of them are 1K. So I'll just pause this as this compresses everything, and I'll be back with you shortly. Okay, so once that's saved, it will just take you back to the UDK game. And if you come under the UDK game and content, and come right to the bottom here, you'll see our package. We click on that, you can see everything's in there. Now, one thing about packages before you can start using them properly and before you can start importing more data to it, you'll notice that when you first open it up, if you don't have this attached to any level that you've got open, if you have a look down here, we've got these little tiny squares. All that is telling me is that this has not been fully loaded. This is just like a preview, and it's a bit of a low down sort of preview. So before we can start using anything properly, we need to fully load it. Now you can either go and fully load it by just clicking a button here. Now that loaded everything because she was attached to all of these. The other way you can fully load is by going to the folder, right click and fully load. But because I'd clicked on Selena herself and it had put everything out as loaded because it was all connected to her, we don't need to fully load. So if you ever see the arrow, you can either do it one at a time, or as in this case, because the mesh was connected to all of this, it did it all at once, or you can just come up to the folder, right click and fully load. So now if we have a look, we have got Selena, and just like what we did in the UI, all you do is you use your mouse buttons to rotate around like so, and move her about. And here is your character, just with your sample or simple textures that you created in Photoshop without any subsurface scatter. And also, you'll notice her eyes are white. That's because it's without any opacity mask, which I'll get to. Okay. Now, if you want to find out what textures have been created, we can have a look here. Now, this here is your static mesh editor. This shows you all sorts of things. I'll just take you through a few little things now. Now, you remember we created two UV maps. We've got here a light maps coordinate index. We need to make sure that that is the correct one. 9 times out of 10, this is correct. But we need to still double check. So if we want to have a quick look at what the UVs are, all you do is you come up to this little icon here and it says show UV overlay. And you'll notice next to it we've got these different channels. Okay, so I click on this. As you can see, UV channel 1, light map coordinates index 1, this is the one that we do want for our light map coordinates index. So it has picked it up correctly. If, for example, the UDK had picked up the wrong one, this is where you come in and check the different channels and set the correct one. So if this light maps coordinate index was set to a 0, we don't want that because that is our diffuse. So you'd set this to 1. Now we've only got the 2 channels, so 2 and 3 will show up with nothing. So this is how you can see what UV channels are set to what to make sure that this is correct. You also have a light maps resolution. We will keep this on 32 to start with, but as you get to the end and you want to do it as production, we will beef this up. The larger the figure, the longer it takes, but the better it also looks. Now, if you also want to see what textures that have been assigned to it, if you come into here, now sometimes this might be de-expanded, so we might need to expand it. So all you do is click on this little arrow here, And the same with all these options here. As you can see, these will expand or de-expand. So if we want to see what materials are for each part, all we do is we come in. If you click on the word material, it will highlight which part of the mesh has been assigned to that material. As you can see, we've got the eyebrows and the body. If I click on this, it's the head. Now, if you want to go to that quickly, you've forgotten, oh, I don't remember where I saved it to. Very simple. With this selected, I'll just move this to the side a bit. And I'll show you what will happen. If I decide, oh, I don't remember where I saved my material, all you do is you've got these buttons here. You click on this little button here, which finds the object in Content Browser. So click on this, and it goes straight to that material. Likewise with the head, click on this, and it's gone to the head material. So that is how you can bring in your mesh with materials already attached. And if you then want to make modifications to the material, very simple. I've got this head and I decide, yep, I want to make modifications to it. If you remember, we brought this in, including materials and textures. Now, something strange is going to happen, but don't panic. This is just normal. If I double click on this, this will open up the material editor. And I will just scale this down to the correct size. Okay, and this is what your material editor looks like. Now, you've noticed, oh, hang on. Where are all my textures? Oh, I can see it on the model, but where have they all gone? Don't panic. This is because when it brings it in, it'll just put it to one corner. So to move these out, all you do, hold down the Control key on your keyboard, click on one of the top texture coordinate, hold down the Control key, click and drag. Do the next one. Click on the texture sample, hold down Control key, drag. Next one, click, hold down Control key, drag. Likewise with the next one, hold down Control key and drag. Next one, and the next one. And here are all your textures, just the simple 3 textures. You've got the diffuse, the specular, and the normal map. And this is how it will bring it in. Now, if you're wondering how I'm moving about in here, same as in the engine. To move about like so, just hold down the right mouse button, click and drag. Like so. If you want to drag these about, click on it, hold down the Control key, left click button and drag. If you want to drag a couple of them at a time, you can click on the first one, hold down the Control key, click again. As you can see, there's a yellow little outline. That means I've got them both. With them selected, hold down the Control key, grab, say, one of them, texture coordinate, text sample, left mouse button, click and hold, and drag. If I wanted to grab all of these, I can hold down Control Alt, come over here, hold down the left mouse button, and drag. And you'll see it's dragging out this little red box. That's a selection box. Once I let go, it's selected all of those. And then again, hold down the Control key, click and drag. Okay. So this is just the basics of the material editor. What we're going to do in the next lesson is we're actually going to go into Photoshop and we're going to export certain maps and then we're going to bring them in and create the SSS shader. So what we've learnt in this lesson is we've learnt how we can get around the UI of the engine, how we import a mesh with material and textures already attached to it, how we can open up the material editor and move about, and as well as how we can save our packages.